Ambassador G1 stood alone in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall. The massive room stretched out in all directions, filled with alien faces she had tried to understand for 3 years. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of pure light. Above her head, holographic screens floated in the air, showing images of human ships and colonies. Each image was labeled with words like aggressive and dangerous. The air smelled strange, a mixture of chemicals that kept all the different species comfortable. Ji-won breathed it in and kept her face calm. She had learned that showing fear here was the same as admitting guilt. High Chancellor Vesh sat on the highest platform, his tall body covered in silver robes. His species, the Veltharians, had ruled the Galactic Council for thousands of years. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. Humanity has been charged with multiple violations of galactic law, Vesh announced. You have expanded too quickly. You have built weapons we did not approve. You have refused to follow our guidance. The Council has reviewed all evidence and we have reached a decision. Ji-won watched as the voting began. Lights appeared next to each council member's seat. Red meant guilty. Blue meant innocent. Green meant they chose not to vote. The hall filled with red lights spreading like fire through a dry forest. When the counting finished, the numbers appeared on every screen. 847 voted for Exile, 43 voted against, and 67 chose not to vote. The room erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered. Others made sounds of approval that hurt Ji-won's ears. A few sat in silence, their faces showing what might have been sadness or shame. The terms of exile are clear, Vesh continued, raising one long hand for silence. All human colonies beyond your home system must be abandoned within 1 standard year. All human vessels must remain in the quarantine zone around your sun. Any human presence outside this zone will be considered an act of war and will be met with military force. Ji-won had expected this. Earth's intelligence agencies had warned her 3 months ago that the vote was coming. Still, hearing it spoken out loud felt different. It felt final. She looked up at the Chancellor and saw satisfaction in his eyes. He thought he had won. He thought humanity would beg for mercy or promise to change. She smiled instead. Thank you, High Chancellor, Ji-won said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. Thank you for making Earth's position so clear. We understand perfectly now, Vesh frowned. This was not the response he expected. Around the hall, aliens leaned forward in their seats, confused by her calm tone. You should understand that this exile is for your own good, Vesh said. Humanity is too young, too violent. You need time to mature, to learn how civilized species behave. Perhaps we are too young, Ji-won replied. Or perhaps we simply see the galaxy differently than you do. Either way, the Council has made its choice and we accept it. Earth will comply with your terms. We will leave Council space entirely. Now the confusion in the hall grew louder. Aliens spoke to each other in dozens of languages, their translation devices creating a wall of overlapping sound. You accept exile? Vesh asked. Just like that? No appeals? No requests for reconsideration? No, Ji-won said simply. You have given us exactly what we needed. Freedom from your rules. Freedom from your bureaucracy. Freedom to build our future without asking permission from people who will never understand us. She turned slowly, looking at all the council members one by one. Some met her eyes. Many looked away. We came to you 3 years ago with open hands and open hearts, she continued. We wanted to join your community. We wanted to learn from you and share what we knew. But you saw us as children who needed to be controlled. You saw our strength as a threat instead of a gift. So now we will leave and we will build something new, something better. Counselor Thren, the insectoid diplomat from the Chitauri hive, clicked his mandibles together, and what Ji-won had learned was a sign of concern. He had been one of the few who voted against exile. Ambassador Ji-won, Thren said, his voice making a buzzing sound through his translator. Please understand that many of us wish things could be different. Some of us see great potential in humanity. I know, Ji-won said, her voice softer now. And I thank those of you who tried. But the vote is done. The decision is made. Humanity will respect it. She took a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. Behind her, a holographic screen appeared, showing the Earth as seen from space. The blue and green planet turned slowly, beautiful and fragile. This is our home, she said. The place where we learn to dream, to build, to reach for the stars. You think sending us back there is punishment? You think we will be trapped and helpless? But you forget something important about humans. We have always been at our best when someone tells us we cannot do something. The image changed, showing construction sites in orbit around Earth and Mars. Hundreds of ships were being built, far more than the Council knew about. We have been preparing for this day, Jiwan said. We knew it might come. So while you debated and discussed, we built. While you judged us, we planned. You gave us 1 year to leave. We will be gone in 6 months. Besh stood up, his silver robes flowing around him. His face showed something that might have been anger or fear. Perhaps both. This is not a game, Ambassador, he said. You cannot simply leave known space. There are dangers out there, regions we have not explored, species we have not contacted. You will be alone and vulnerable. Then we will face those dangers together as we always have, Jiwan replied. Humanity does not fear the unknown, Chancellor. We embrace it. We have crossed oceans and deserts, climbed mountains, and descended into the deepest seas. We have split the atom and walked on our moon. Every time someone said it was impossible, we proved them wrong. She turned off the holographic display and walked toward the exit. Before she reached the door, she stopped and looked back one final time. You wanted to exile us to teach us a lesson, she said, but I think you are the ones who will learn something. You will learn what happens when you underestimate humanity. You will learn that we do not break when you push us down. We get back up stronger than before. Jiwan walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall with her head high and her steps steady. Behind her, the Council sat in silence, already beginning to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Tae-hyun watched the broadcast from his command ship. When Jiwan finished speaking, he allowed himself a small smile. He picked up his communication device and sent a single message to every human colony, every ship, every station. Execute Exodus Protocol. We leave in 6 months, and across human space, millions of people began to move. 3 months had passed since the exile vote. Earth looked different now. From space, the planet glowed brighter than before, surrounded by a ring of lights that never went dark. Thousands of ships moved in precise patterns around the planet, between the moon and out to Mars. It was the largest construction project humanity had ever attempted, and it was working. Admiral Tae-hyun floated in the observation deck of his flagship, the Defiance. Through the wide windows, he watched 3 colony ships take shape in the orbital shipyard. Each ship was 5 kilometers long, designed to carry 50,000 people and everything they would need to start a new life. The ships looked like cities turned on their sides, with towers and platforms extending in all directions. Dr. Hana joined him at the window, her tablet glowing with complex equations and ship designs. She had not slept properly in weeks, surviving on coffee and determination. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but those eyes were bright with excitement. The new jump drives are ready for testing, she said without greeting. We can install them in the scout ships by next week. If the tests work, we will be able to travel twice as fast as any council vessel. Tae-hyun nodded slowly. He had learned to trust Hana's judgment completely. When she said something would work, it worked. When she said something was impossible, no one else could do it either. How did you do it? He asked. The council has been developing jump drive technology for thousands of years. How did we improve it in 3 months? Hana smiled, a rare expression on her usually serious face. They were trying to make it safe and predictable. We were trying to make it fast. Different goals lead to different solutions. Also, we are not afraid to take risks that would terrify them. On Mars, engineer Yuna stood in the center of the largest factory complex ever built by human hands. The factory stretched for kilometers in every direction, covered by a transparent dome that protected it from the harsh Martian atmosphere. Inside, thousands of workers and machines worked together to build ship components, weapon systems, and life support equipment. Yuna watched as a massive engine block moved past on automated rails. The engine was her design, smaller and more efficient than anything humanity had built before. It used less fuel, produced more power, and could be repaired with basic tools. She called it the Phoenix engine because it could rise from almost any failure. A young engineer approached her with a question about the cooling systems. Yuna answered while simultaneously checking 3 other systems on her handheld display. She had learned to think about 5 different problems at once, switching between them like channels on a television. It was the only way to keep up with the impossible pace of the Exodus project. We are ahead of schedule, the young engineer reported. The colony ships will be ready 2 weeks early. Good, Una said. Then we build 2 more. The Admiral wants 300 ships. We will give him 320. In a small office on Luna, Ambassador G1 sat across from Counselor Thren. The insectoid alien had traveled in secret to meet with her, risking his position on the council to deliver a warning. His compound eyes reflected the light in strange patterns as he leaned forward. The council is watching you, Thren said, his mandibles clicking nervously. They have sent observation teams to monitor your preparations. Chancellor Vesh believes you are building weapons, not just colony ships. We are building both, G1 replied calmly. We would be foolish not to. The galaxy is a dangerous place, as the council has reminded us many times. Thren's wings buzzed, and what she had learned was a sign of anxiety. You do not understand. Some council members want to attack you before you leave. They fear what you might become if you are allowed to grow without oversight. Let them try, G1 said, her voice harder now. We are not the helpless species they remember from 3 years ago. Every day we grow stronger. Every day we build more ships, develop better technology, and prepare for whatever comes. If they attack us, they will learn an expensive lesson. Thren was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his robes and pulled out a small data chip. This contains star charts of the regions beyond Council space. My people explored those areas centuries ago, but never colonized them. There are habitable worlds there, rich in resources. The Council has kept these charts secret to prevent expansion, but I believe humanity deserves a chance. G1 took the chip carefully, understanding the risk Thren had taken. Thank you, she said simply. This gift will not be forgotten. When humanity builds its new home, the Chitauri people will always be welcome. Far beyond the orbit of Pluto, Captain Minho piloted his scout ship into unknown space. His crew of 12 had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They were the first humans to leave the solar system since the Exile vote, the tip of the spear that would find humanity's new home. The ship, called the Indomitable, was small and fast. It carried weapons but was built for speed and stealth rather than combat. Minho's job was not to fight but to explore, to find safe routes through the darkness between stars, and to identify worlds where humans could live. His second-in-command, a pilot named Dami, brought him a cup of coffee and sat in the seat next to him. The stars ahead looked different here, brighter somehow, full of possibility. Do you think we will find anything out here? Dami asked. Minho smiled, his eyes fixed on the star map in front of him. I think we will find everything we need. The Council controlled the space around Earth because they got there first. But out here, beyond their reach, there are millions of stars they have never touched. Somewhere in all that darkness is a place perfect for us. The Indomitable jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving a brief flash of light behind. 20 minutes later, it emerged in a star system that had never been seen by Council eyes. 7 planets orbited a yellow sun. Scanners showed that the third planet had oxygen, water, and a climate similar to Earth. Minho's hands moved across his controls, gathering data. His heart beat faster with excitement. They had done it. On their very first jump, they had found a world that could support human life. Record everything, he ordered his crew. Send the data back to Earth immediately. This is what we have been looking for. Over the next 2 months, Minho and his crew found 12 more systems with habitable planets. Each discovery was transmitted back to Earth, where it was added to the growing database of humanity's future. The Terra Nova Expanse, as they called it, was larger and richer than anyone had dared to hope. Back on Earth, the day of departure arrived. The entire Exodus fleet assembled in orbit, visible from every part of the planet. 342 colony ships, 89 industrial vessels, 158 military escorts, and the massive flagship Defiance. Over 12 million people waited aboard those ships, ready to begin their new lives. Admiral Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by holographic displays showing the status of every ship in the fleet. Everyone was ready. All systems were green. They could leave at any moment. He opened a communication channel to the entire fleet and to Earth below. His voice was calm and clear, the voice of a man who had prepared for this moment his entire life. Today we leave the world of our birth. Today we step into the unknown. The Galactic Council wanted to cage us, to slow us down, to teach us to be afraid. Instead, they have freed us to become something greater than they ever imagined. We carry with us the best of humanity, our courage, our creativity, our refusal to accept limits. And we will build a civilization among the stars that will shine as a beacon for all who seek freedom. He paused, looking at the Earth through the window one last time. The blue planet turned slowly beneath them, beautiful and small. Fleet, prepare for jump. Set coordinates for the Terra Nova expanse. We are going home. 589 ships vanished from Earth orbit in a flash of light that could be seen from the ground. The exodus had begun. Humanity was leaving known space behind, heading toward a future they would build with their own hands. And in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, High Chancellor Vesh watched the recordings of the departure with growing unease. He had expected chaos and desperation. Instead, he saw precision and power. For the first time since the vote, he wondered what humanity would become in the darkness beyond his reach. 18 months after leaving Earth, humanity had transformed the Terra Nova expanse into something remarkable. Where there had been empty space and untouched worlds, now there were cities rising from alien soil, farms growing under foreign suns, and ships moving between dozens of thriving colonies. The capital city, New Sol, spread across the surface of a planet they called Alpha Prime. The planet was slightly larger than Earth, with 3 moons that painted beautiful patterns across the night sky. Buildings reached upward in styles that mixed human architecture with practical designs suited to the new environment. Parks and gardens filled the spaces between structures, and solar panels covered every rooftop. Captain Minho walked through the crowded streets of New Sol, amazed at how quickly the city had grown. Children played in the parks, speaking a mix of languages from Earth. Street vendors sold food from a dozen different cultures. Musicians performed on corners, their songs blending old melodies with new rhythms inspired by this alien world. He stopped at a cafe and ordered coffee, watching people pass by. Most of them looked happy, healthier than they had been on Earth. The air here was cleaner, the food was better, and everyone had work that mattered. There were no homeless people on these streets, no one going hungry. Humanity had learned from old mistakes and built something better. His communication device buzzed. It was Admiral Tae-hyun, requesting his presence at the government complex. Minho finished his coffee quickly and headed toward the tallest building in the city, a tower that served as the headquarters for the Human Federation. In the Admiral's office, Tae-hyun stood with Dr. Hana and Engineer Yuna, all of them studying a holographic display floating above the conference table. The display showed something that looked like ancient ruins on a distant planet. "Tell me what you found," Tae-hyun said as Minho entered. Minho activated his own display, showing more images of the ruins. "We were exploring a system at the edge of the expanse when we detected unusual energy readings from the 4th planet. When we landed to investigate, we found a city, but it was not built by any species we know. The architecture is completely different from anything in Council space, and our dating systems indicate the structures are over 10,000 years old." Dr. Hana leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "What kind of technology did they have?" "Advanced," Minho replied. "Very advanced. We found devices that still work after all these years. Power generators that seem to draw energy from nothing. Computer systems we cannot fully understand yet. And something else. Something that looks like a message." He changed the image to show a massive wall covered in symbols. Some of the symbols glowed faintly, as if waiting for someone to read them. "Our translation computer spent 3 days analyzing the symbols," Minho continued. "The language is complex, but we believe we have the basic meaning. The message says that this civilization, which they called themselves the progenitors, left these ruins deliberately. They left them as a gift for whoever found them. They wanted their knowledge to survive and help others." Yuna touched the hologram, rotating it to see different angles. "Why would they leave everything behind? What happened to them?" "We do not know yet," Minho said, "but there are more symbols that tell a story. They speak of a great council that became corrupt, that stopped exploring and started controlling. The progenitors disagreed with this council and left to find new places to live. The last symbols suggest they traveled to another galaxy entirely." Admiral Tae-hyun stood very still, understanding the implications. "They are talking about the Galactic Council. The progenitors founded it and then left when it became something they did not like." "Exactly," Hana said. "And if we can understand their technology, we will leap forward by centuries, maybe more. I need to go to these ruins immediately. We need to study everything, Copy everything, learn everything we can. Over the next 6 months, a team of scientists worked in the progenitor ruins. They learned to read the ancient computers, studied the power systems, and slowly began to understand technology that seemed like magic. Hana spent every waking hour there, sleeping in a tent beside the ruins, refusing to leave until she understood how everything worked. The breakthroughs came one after another. They learned to create shields that could stop any weapon the Council possessed. They developed new engines that could travel between stars in days instead of weeks. They found medical technology that could heal injuries thought to be permanent. Each discovery was shared across all human colonies, improving life for everyone. But the most important discovery was a library. A massive database containing the complete history of the progenitors, their science, their philosophy, and detailed maps of the galaxy, showing thousands of habitable worlds the Council had never found. Ambassador Jiwan stood in front of the Human Government Assembly, presenting what they had learned. Behind her, screens showed images from the progenitor database alongside images of the current Galactic Council. "We now know the truth," she said to the assembled representatives. The Galactic Council was never meant to control the galaxy. It was meant to help species grow and cooperate. But over thousands of years, it became a tool for keeping things the same, for preventing change, for suppressing anyone who might challenge the established order. The progenitors saw this happening and chose to leave rather than fight. They hoped someone else would come along and fix what they started. She paused, looking at each face in the room. "I believe that someone is us. We have the technology now. We have the knowledge. We have allies who are tired of Council control. It is time to show the galaxy what we have built. It is time to offer them an alternative." The next day, humanity sent a broadcast toward Council space. The message was simple and powerful. It showed images of thriving human colonies, advanced technology, and happy people living in freedom. It showed the progenitor ruins and explained what humanity had learned. And it ended with an invitation. Any species tired of Council restrictions, any people who wanted to explore and grow without asking permission, any civilization that believed in freedom over control, they were all welcome to join humanity in building something new. They called it the Coalition of Free Systems. The response shocked everyone. Within weeks, 3 species announced they were leaving the Council to join humanity. The nomads, a peaceful people who lived on generation ships, came first. They brought 3 billion people and centuries of experience traveling between stars. Next came the Miners' Guild of Talax, experts at finding and extracting resources from asteroids and dead planets. Finally, the Merchant Collective, traders who had grown tired of Council taxes and regulations. Each species that joined brought something valuable. Knowledge, skills, population, ships, and most importantly, they brought hope. Hope that there was a better way to live among the stars. In New Sol, the first coalition assembly met. Representatives from all member species sat together in a circular chamber, designed so that everyone could see everyone else. There was no high platform for a supreme leader, no division between important and unimportant members. Every voice had equal weight. Admiral Tae-hyun addressed the assembly with words that would be remembered for generations. "We did not choose exile. It was forced upon us. But we chose how to respond. We chose to build rather than surrender. We chose to grow rather than shrink. We chose freedom rather than control. And now we offer that same choice to anyone who wants it. Together we will show the galaxy that there is another way." Back in Council space, High Chancellor Vesh watched reports of humanity's success with growing alarm. Council intelligence agencies delivered update after update, each one more disturbing than the last. Humanity had not just survived exile. They had prospered beyond all projections. They had found ancient technology. They had attracted defectors. They were becoming a rival power that threatened everything the Council had built. An emergency session was called. Council members argued for hours about how to respond. Some wanted to attack immediately, to crush humanity before they grew stronger. Others wanted to negotiate to find a peaceful solution. A few, like Councillor Thren, argued that humanity had done nothing wrong and should be left alone. In the end, fear won over wisdom. The Council issued an ultimatum. Humanity must stop accepting defectors, cease all expansion, and submit to Council inspection. If they refused, the Council would consider it an act of war. When Ambassador Jiwan received the ultimatum, she read it carefully and then smiled. The Council still did not understand. Threats would not work on humans. Pressure would not break them. The more you pushed, the harder they pushed back. She prepared her response, knowing that the galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about humanity. 3 years after Exile, the galaxy stood on the edge of war. In the neutral zone between Council and Coalition space, two massive fleets faced each other across an empty stretch of stars. On one side, the largest military force the Galactic Council had assembled in centuries. On the other, humanity's defense fleet, smaller in number but more advanced in technology. Admiral Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching displays that showed every ship in both fleets. The Council had brought 2,000 vessels, including their most powerful battleships and carrier groups. Humanity had 400 ships, but each one was equipped with progenitor-enhanced shields, weapons, and engines. The standoff had lasted 3 days. No shots had been fired, but weapons were charged and ready. Both sides waited for the other to make the first move. Tension filled the air like electricity before a storm. Captain Minho piloted his scout ship in a wide circle around the Council fleet, his scanners recording everything. His movements were deliberately aggressive, pushing close to Council vessels before banking away at the last moment. He was testing their reactions, studying their formations, and letting them know that humans were not afraid. Each time he flew past a Council ship, their weapons tracked him, but did not fire. They were disciplined soldiers following orders not to start the battle. But Minho could see the tension in their movements. They were scared. They had heard stories about human technology, about progenitor weapons, about ships that could not be damaged by conventional arms. On the lead Council battleship, Commander Drelth of the Kryn Dominion watched the human scout ship with a mixture of frustration and admiration. His species valued courage and skill in battle, and the human pilot showed both. The way the small ship moved, dancing between much larger vessels without fear, reminded him of the warrior traditions of his own people. His second-in-command, a Kryn officer named Vok, growled deep in his throat. "We should destroy that ship. It shows disrespect to our fleet." Drelth shook his head. "That ship is making us look weak in front of the entire fleet. But if we fire on it without provocation, we start a war we may not win. The humans want us to shoot first. They are hoping we will make a mistake." "You think we would lose?" Vok asked, surprised. "We outnumber them 5-1. Numbers are not everything," Drelth replied. "Look at their ships. Do you see any damage? Anywhere, any signs of age? Everything is new, perfectly maintained, built with technology we do not fully understand. I have studied the intelligence reports. Human shields can absorb our best weapons. Their missiles can penetrate our armor. Their ships are faster than ours. If we fight them here, we will win eventually. But the cost will be terrible." While the fleets watched each other, Dr. Hana made a discovery that would change everything. In the deepest sections of the progenitor database, she found a file that had been sealed with multiple layers of security. It took her 2 days of constant work to break through the protections and access the contents. What she found inside made her hands shake. It was a complete history of the Galactic Council's formation, written by the progenitors themselves. The file explained how they had created the Council as a cooperative organization meant to help species grow together. But over centuries, political leaders had twisted it into a tool for control. The progenitors had watched as the Council began suppressing new technologies, limiting exploration, and punishing species that showed too much independence. They had tried to reform the system from within, but the bureaucracy had grown too large and too corrupt. Finally, they made a difficult choice. They would leave the galaxy entirely, taking their most advanced technology with them. But before they left, they created the ruins that humanity had found. They designed them to be discovered by a species with the courage to explore beyond Council boundaries, the intelligence to understand advanced technology, and the determination to stand up to authority. In their final message, the progenitors wrote that they hoped such a species would fix what the Council had become. Hana immediately transmitted her findings to Admiral Tae-hyun and Ambassador Ji-won. Within an hour, they decided to share the information with everyone. Not just the Coalition, but the entire galaxy, including the Council fleet waiting at the border. The broadcast went out on all frequencies, impossible to ignore. It showed the progenitor message in its original form, with translations in every major galactic language. It told the complete story of how the Council had been created and how it had changed. It explained that humanity was not trying to destroy the Council, but to restore the original vision of cooperation and freedom. On the Council fleet, the reaction was immediate and chaotic. Officers argued with each other. Some called it human propaganda. Others said it explained things they had always suspected. A few began questioning their orders, wondering if they were fighting on the wrong side. Commander Drelth watched the broadcast twice, his military mind analyzing every detail. He had always been loyal to the Council, but loyalty meant different things to different people. For him, loyalty meant serving the greater good, protecting the weak, and standing for what was right. If the Council had truly abandoned those principles, then what was he defending? He made a decision that would risk his career and possibly his life. He opened a private, encrypted communication channel to the Defiance. Admiral Taehyun, this is Commander Drelth of the Kryn Dominion. I request a direct conversation, commander to commander. Taehyun accepted the communication, and the two military leaders spoke for over an hour. They discussed honor, duty, and what it meant to serve something greater than themselves. They talked about the future of the galaxy and the cost of the war that threatened to begin. Finally, Drelth made a proposal. We are both warriors. We both understand that this battle will be costly for everyone, regardless of who wins. But we also both understand politics. The Council leadership needs to save face. They cannot simply back down from their ultimatum without looking weak. And your government cannot accept their terms without betraying everything you have built. What do you suggest? Taehyun asked. A demonstration, Drelth replied. A brief battle that appears real to observers but is actually coordinated between us. Your ships demonstrate their superiority. My fleet withdraws strategically. Both sides can claim whatever victory they need for their politics. But more importantly, we buy time for diplomacy to work. Taehyun considered the proposal. It was risky. If something went wrong, real lives would be lost. But if it worked, they could avoid a war that might kill millions. Why are you offering this? He asked. Why risk your position? Because I have seen what you have built, Drelth said. I have studied your colonies, your technology, your society. You have accomplished in 3 years what takes most species generations. And you did it without oppressing others, without enslaving conquered populations, without any of the cruelty that marks so many growing empires. If the progenitors were looking for someone to carry their legacy, they chose well. The galaxy needs what you offer, even if the Council does not yet understand that. The two commanders worked out the details carefully. The mock battle would last exactly 1 hour. Human ships would disable Council vessels without destroying them, demonstrating their technological advantage. The Council fleet would withdraw in good order, maintaining their dignity. Casualties would be minimized through careful coordination. The next day, the battle began. To outside observers, it looked like a fierce engagement. Weapons fired, shields flared, ships maneuvered in complex patterns. But every movement was choreographed. Every shot was calculated. When a Council ship took damage, it was exactly enough to disable but not destroy. Captain Minho flew through the chaos, his heart pounding with the thrill of action, even though he knew it was theater. His targeting systems locked onto Council ships, his missiles launched, and Council shields flickered under the impact exactly as planned. It felt real, and that was what mattered. After exactly 1 hour, Commander Drelth ordered his fleet to withdraw. They jumped away in organized groups, leaving the field to humanity. Both sides transmitted their versions of the battle. The Council claimed a strategic withdrawal in the face of unexpected technology. Humanity claimed a defensive victory that proved their capability. Everyone saved face. But more importantly, they opened a door for peace. Within days, Ambassador Ji-won received a message from High Chancellor Vesh. The message was brief and formal, but its meaning was clear. The Council was ready to talk. The summit took place on a neutral station between Council and Coalition space. The station had been built specifically for this meeting, a symbol of new possibilities. Its design combined architectural styles from dozens of species, showing that different civilizations could work together when they chose cooperation over control. Ambassador Ji-won arrived, with a small delegation that included Admiral Taehyun and Dr. Hana. They walked through corridors filled with representatives from across the galaxy, species who had come to witness what many were calling the most important diplomatic event in thousands of years. The main conference room was circular, with no head table or elevated platforms. Every seat was equal, arranged in rings that faced the center. High Chancellor Vesh sat with his council advisors on one side. G1 and her team sat opposite them. Between them, in a place of honor, sat Councillor Thren, who had agreed to mediate the negotiations. Vesh looked older than he had 3 years ago. The stress of recent events had aged him, adding new lines to his face and a weariness to his eyes. But he still carried himself with dignity, and when he spoke, his voice was strong. Ambassador G1, he began. 3 years ago, this council voted to exile your species. We believed it was necessary for the stability and safety of the galaxy. We were wrong. Not about the danger you posed, but about the nature of that danger. We feared you would disrupt our order. We did not understand that our order needed disruption. G1 inclined her head slightly, acknowledging his words. High Chancellor Vesh, 3 years ago you tried to cage humanity because we would not submit to your authority. In response, we built something that proved your authority was not absolute. We did not do this to spite you or to start a war. We did it because we believe all species deserve the freedom to grow, to explore, and to determine their own future. The negotiations lasted for weeks. Every detail had to be discussed, debated, and agreed upon by representatives who had spent years seeing each other as enemies. There were moments of anger and frustration. There were times when it seemed the talks would fail and war would resume. But slowly, painfully, they built something new. Commander Drelth attended many of the sessions, speaking from his experience in the brief conflict. He described what he had seen of human capability and character. He argued that the galaxy was large enough for multiple powers, that competition could be healthy if it was based on mutual respect rather than fear. Dr. Hanna presented the progenitor findings to the full assembly, explaining in detail how the council had evolved from its original purpose. She was careful not to blame anyone currently serving. Systems grew over time, she said. They developed momentum that was hard to change. But now we have a chance to reset, to remember what the council was supposed to be. Admiral Tae-hyun spoke about security concerns from both perspectives. The council feared that humanity would become aggressive and expansionist. Humanity feared that the council would try to crush them. Both fears were reasonable, he said. Both needed to be addressed with clear agreements and mutual guarantees. Finally, after 37 days of negotiations, they reached an agreement. It was not perfect. No treaty ever was. But it was fair, and it gave both sides what they needed most: security, respect, and the freedom to grow in their own ways. The agreement was called the Treaty of Free Stars. Under its terms, the Galactic Council formally recognized the Coalition of Free Systems as an independent entity, with full rights under galactic law. Clear borders were established between Council and Coalition space, with neutral buffer zones that neither side could militarize. Trade agreements were signed that would benefit both sides. Council species could trade with Coalition members without restriction. Technology exchanges were permitted, though both sides kept their most advanced military systems secret. Scientific cooperation was encouraged, with joint research projects planned for the future. Most importantly, the treaty included a freedom of movement clause. Any species that wished to leave the Council and join the Coalition could do so without military interference. Similarly, any Coalition member could choose to join the Council instead. The galaxy's inhabitants would have a choice about how they wanted to be governed. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as Ambassador G1 and High Chancellor Vesh placed their marks on the treaty document. The moment the signatures were complete, crowds erupted in celebration on worlds throughout both Council and Coalition space. After the ceremony, Vesh approached G1 privately. They stood together on an observation deck, looking out at the stars through massive windows. I underestimated your species, Vesh said quietly. I thought exile would humble you. Instead, it freed you to become what you were meant to be. The progenitors chose their heirs well. G1 smiled. We did not ask to be their heirs. We just wanted to be ourselves. That is all anyone wants, really. The freedom to grow and build and explore without someone else deciding what we are allowed to be. What will you do now? Vesh asked. You have freedom. You have space to expand. You have technology that surpasses much of what the Council possesses. What is humanity's next goal? The same thing we have always wanted, G1 replied. To see what is beyond the next horizon. To learn new things. to meet new people, to build a future where our children can dream even bigger dreams than we did, and now perhaps to help others who want the same things. 5 years after the Treaty of Free Stars, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Human Federation had grown to include 30 different species and controlled over 400 star systems. But it was not an empire in the traditional sense. It was a voluntary association of peoples who had chosen cooperation over control. Admiral Tae-Hyun had retired from active service, though he remained an advisor to the government. He spent his days teaching at the new military academy on Alpha Prime, training the next generation of leaders. Students came from dozens of species to learn his philosophy of leadership through service rather than command. Dr. Hana had achieved her dream of establishing the Progenitor Research Institute. Scientists from across the coalition worked together to understand the ancient technology and find new applications for it. Every few months brought a new breakthrough that improved life for everyone. She had finally learned to sleep regular hours, though she still spent most of her waking time in the laboratory. Engineer Yuna had become something of a celebrity. Her designs were used in ships and stations throughout Coalition space. But she remained humble, always insisting that good engineering was a team effort. She traveled constantly, teaching workshops and helping new colonies build their infrastructure. Captain Minho led the first Joint Council Coalition expedition into unexplored space. His crew included humans, Kryn, Chitauri, and several other species. They were searching for new worlds, new resources, and new civilizations. Every week brought fresh discoveries, and Minho sent regular reports back that filled the news feeds with wonder. Ambassador Jiwon had achieved what once seemed impossible. She became the first human to address the Galactic Council as an equal, invited to speak about the success of the coalition model. Her speech was simple and powerful, focusing on the idea that prosperity comes from cooperation, not control. The Galactic Council itself had begun to change. Inspired by the coalition example, several reform movements had gained strength. Some council species were demanding more freedom, less bureaucracy, and a return to the progenitor vision. The changes were slow, but they were happening. On Earth, people looked up at the night sky with pride. Their world had been exiled, cast out by powers who feared what humans might become. But humanity had turned punishment into opportunity. They had proven that the human spirit could not be contained by laws or borders or threats. In classrooms across coalition space, teachers told the story of exile to students of many species. They explained how humanity had been given a choice between surrender and defiance, and how they had chosen a third option: transformation. The lesson was simple but profound. When someone tries to limit you, do not fight them or obey them. Instead, become something so remarkable that limits become meaningless. The galaxy had learned an important truth. Humanity did not break when you pushed them down. They got back up stronger than before. They did not seek revenge when wronged. They built something better. They did not demand to be accepted. They created something worth joining. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, the progenitors watched and smiled. They had waited 10,000 years for someone worthy of their legacy. In humanity and their allies, they had found exactly what they hoped for: a civilization brave enough to challenge the status quo, wise enough to build rather than destroy, and strong enough to offer others the same freedom they claimed for themselves. The galaxy had a new beginning, and the future was bright with possibility.